Okay, cool. So this is, I think, one of the last talks of the day. It's Chrome DevTools, tips and tricks. Yeah, hopefully it's going to be quite interesting. I'm kind of keen to understand who here uses Chrome to actually develop web apps or websites. Oh, wow, okay, cool. So are you all really, really familiar with the console and the DevTools? Okay, cool. So this is basically, we're going to talk about some of the latest kind of additions to Chrome DevTools, you know, what we're working on, just how to actually just improve your life as a developer when you're developing for Chrome. I say for Chrome, for the web inside Chrome. So yeah, the Chrome DevTools is a great web app that you can use to develop great web apps. The whole reason we're saying that is actually, if we do, oh, hang on, let me do this correctly. If we look at this, this is basically the Chrome DevTools. Can I get them out? Oh, cool, I can do that. So this is basically the Chrome DevTools. If you actually look at the code for this, it is actually all just a big web app. It's all HTML and JavaScript, nothing kind of amazingly special with the way it does things. So yeah, this is an awesome web app for developing your awesome web applications. And I think we're going to try and spend quite a bit of time inside this application today just to kind of show you what you can do, what's possible, and all this type of stuff. I'd actually encourage anyone, if you have any questions, just feel free to shout them out. Just let me know kind of if you want to know anything in particular when we're going through it. That'd be kind of cool. So anyway, let's jump onto this. The agenda, so we're going to talk about kind of styling, kind of network interaction, the console API, which is actually, it's quite a bit more in depth than I initially thought it was when I started kind of preparing for this presentation. Script debugging, and you know, you saw some really cool things like in the keynote where they did the JavaScript prettifier, I can't say the word properly, but you know, the pretty printer is probably the best way of saying it. Yeah, so we're going to kind of talk about that. It's kind of pretty cool. We're going to got some nice things to do. So the Chrome DevTools in 60 seconds. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look at this, right? So this is the Chrome DevTools. We press Command-Shift-I in Chrome at least. We can open it up into a new window, but it allows us to do some really cool things, like we can inspect elements just by pressing the magnifying glass. Click on it, it takes us to the actual specific element there. And then we get the ability to kind of manipulate a whole load of kind of CSS and view all the kind of specific styles that were matched, whether before and after for pseudo selectors and all that type of stuff. We also get the ability to kind of see the list of resources, including things like the databases. So who uses Web SQL database? Anyone? One or two people, cool. So your Web SQL database will be listed there. At some point, the IndexedDB databases will also be listed there as well. Local storage, session storage, kind of the cookies that you might use to actually store this. This is a Google Analytics tracking one. App cache. So I'm going to ask you a question. Who's used app cache? 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you like developing with app cache? Yeah, it's hard, right? I mean, the whole thing behind this is now we have a panel inside, at least inside the resource tool, which describes, well, I haven't actually got into the app cache in this, but it describes at least all the assets that you've cached. Prior to this, you used to have to try and use the console login device to actually be able to understand the list of resources that were requested via app cache, but now we have a nice little list of app caches there. It's kind of cool. Network resources, let's do a refresh. We got a list of all the network resources that we can download. The status of 304, you know, it's not modified, all that type of stuff. It's kind of nice. We get a timeline view. I'm literally going over this in 60 seconds. I've probably taken too long already. Scripts. Let's see if we can get a nice... No, that's already prettified. I'll tell you what, I'll show you another page soon with web intents. But we can do things like we can do pretty print, and we're going to talk about how you can edit live JavaScript, a whole load of really cool stuff. Timeline, actually trying to understand the things that happen behind the scenes inside Chrome and WebKit inside your application. We can do a whole load of really cool stuff with that, kind of understand when redraws happen and the whole crazy stuff. I'm not going to talk too much about the timeline today. And profiling, so we can understand the CPU profiling, how long your application spends in specific JavaScript functions, and really cool things as well. I want to quickly show you the heap snapshot. You press it again. You can force things like garbage collection. So you press the heap snapshot button, which is this kind of, it's this eye at the bottom just here. That'll take basically a snapshot of all the kind of JavaScript memory that's being used, the name of the objects, the types of the objects. And then it can do, when you do a snapshot, you can compare it between a different version. It'll force a garbage collection, which means that you can see how much how much memory your application's using, all that type of stuff. So it's really quite powerful. We've got audits as well. Audits kind of cool. They tell you kind of how to improve your application. And we can talk about that as well. And then finally the console. The console is where you can do all your magic and declare variables, v equals, I know. Hello, this is the worst demo ever, but we can say v, hello. But it's a nice little console to get you kind of command line-esque access to your web application. So that was more than 60 seconds. I'm really sorry about that, but roughly that was a really brief overview of the Chrome DevRel tools. We'll start off with styling. Styling is probably one of the biggest areas that a whole lot of developers said that we didn't do a really great job on, of actually enabling you to manipulate your page just directly inside manipulate your page, but more specifically the CSS styles, understanding which kind of CSS styles matched, all that type of stuff. And we didn't do a particularly great job of doing that. And I think some of the recent improvements have been pretty kind of amazing. So the idea is...
May I ask you?
Yes?
Are you working with guys from Firebug? Or?
I don't believe so. I've not. I don't believe you.
I
believe... I think there's a whole lot of things that we've learned from kind of like code editors generally, Firebug and all this type of stuff, which they greatly improve the lives of developers, and we want to make sure that when we get users and developers using the Chrome development tools, you get the same type of functionality that you'd expect across all these different browser platforms. It's like debug breakpoints. I mean, you could always debug kind of your JavaScript in kind of Visual Studio and IE, and we've got obviously Visual Studio, not Visual Studio, but like debugging support, which we're going to go into in a little bit as well. Like breakpoints and all kind of like watches and all crazy stuff as well. But yeah, it kind of looks like a lot of the Firebug stuff. It's kind of interesting. But this is the styling tool, right? So this gives us complete access to the DOM. We can do things like have a magnifying glass and select the element, which is the quick color manipulator we've just selected. It's really cool because actually we've got this list of styles here. We've got this kind of style for the current element. So we can do things like, background, color. See, as we're doing it, it's kind of auto-completing as well. Actually, that's white. It's white already. 000. We've just manipulated that. The really cool thing as well is it changes it to black, but I believe we can kind of flick between the different kind of modes that you want to do this with. So we can add styles. We can also kind of toggle the state. So the interesting thing is actually what we should be saying is, and that didn't work very well. Let me just make sure that's removed. Sorry. Is actually in theory we should be able to apply this particular state to the hover state. So we're actually saying this style is actually on hover, and it's a relatively new thing. It's not been in there before. But the idea is that actually, you want to be able to detect hover states. One of those things that we do on the web is when you do things like drag and drop, and you kind of you start the drag, you kind of want to do a nice little style when you actually press hover over the drop zone and all this type of stuff. We want to be able to do those styles there, and we can do those different styles for different elements. But we get the list of matched rules as well. The matched rules is kind of important, right? Because when you've got complex CSS and multiple CSS files, actually trying to get to the point where part of the cascade happened is really quite hard. And this, as a CSS rule, kind of shows you what's there. This was done in the style file. This is actually part of the user agent style sheet. We can actually tell you exactly where specific elements came in. And likewise, we can actually do things like disable, not the greatest demo. There we are. We can disable them as well and enable them. So it's kind of pretty powerful. And you can get to the single point of where it was defined as well. It's just a nice little kind of utilities to be able to let you go and do the really cool stuff. But sorry, yeah, we've got the new style rules and the pseudo class selector as well. Yeah, this is the interesting bit. We've got metrics. I kind of like this, but we get to see kind of, as you can see here, kind of where the padding comes in, the border and the margin. It's just a really nice way of doing it. So you can actually work out exactly where, where all your individual styles are used and actually how it looks and how it's actually applied. And then you can do, you've probably seen this actually before, but you can do really nice things like change the padding there, change it in that, change it back. Yeah, so we get kind of styling control, right? We get autocomplete everywhere. It's kind of nice. It's just one of those kind of utility things. It just makes it a whole lot easier to develop nice little web applications. CSS manipulation. So we briefly touched on this. I didn't actually realize the keynote had this in. But we have this whole idea of, excuse me, being able to actually, let's go to this element. So we're going to change the margin on this. We're going to put 10px to every single, no we won't actually, because that's, I won't do that because that'll affect my whole presentation. So let's just do it for this style. So padding 10px, right? That's kind of cool. Where is the edit? So we should be able to go to the resources, click on, this didn't work as well. Damn, sorry. Develop tools. Let's tell you what, let's go and do it anyway. Let's go here. We can do the edit here. We can actually put some code in. Background, color, should we do pink? Save it out. Sorry, let me just click that button. And if this has all worked, which it should have done because there shouldn't be a problem with it, we've changed every single element. So we've got live CSS editing, it's kind of cool. All right? But then we go back to actually this little section here. We've got a nice little, I can't do zoom. There we are, sorry. We've got a nice little drop down here which tells you the original version, at least, and it should also highlight inside the CSS. See, there's like a little green bar across here. It should actually highlight all the changes. So as soon as you start doing changes, they're kind of all version controlled. And then once it's version controlled, you can then save it back out to your file system, and then whether it's your source control, commit it to the source control and do it that way. It's just a really nice way of, it's just a really nice way of kind of starting to manage your CSS files. And it's one of those things, if you look at a whole lot of the plugins that Firefox developers have had over the past, where you've been able to kind of manipulate the CSS and then save it out and then automatically commit it, we're starting to get to that point now. It's kind of powerful. So anyway, you know what? Let me just change that pink. It's going to do my head in the whole presentation. Let's see if we can revert. Revert to this revision. There we are. It's all gone. It's pretty cool, right? Pretty powerful stuff. Okay, network interaction. Let's have a look. Network timeline. We've seen this briefly a minute ago. Again, it's kind of powerful stuff. Once you start actually being able to see how it all lays out, you can actually start to see things like when specific resources loaded. Sorry, when specific resources loaded, and then you can then start to try and optimize your application and the way that assets are loaded based off this information that you get here. So, in theory, most of this application loaded pretty quickly, right? It took a couple of milliseconds. It was only waiting around for 199 milliseconds to go and get that resource information. And it took 1 millisecond to actually receive that data. So it's kind of interesting what you can do with this. You know, if you look at this event here, links out to paulirish.com. Paul Irish, do you all know Paul Irish? Paul Irish is basically our Chrome DevRel tools, DevTools kind of dude. And he does most of these talks around this. But if you look at this DNS lookup, you know, you can actually break down how long the DNS took to look up, how long it took to actually connect to the server and send the request. There was actually nothing to send in this case, so it was pretty cool. And then it took 1.4 seconds or 1.04 seconds to receive it in. So you can start to do a whole load of really cool stuff with your network information. And then you can do basic things like actually view the information itself. So say you're looking at the index file, you can look at the HTTP headers that were sent through. So the request headers, the response headers. This is actually kind of cool. So I've done a whole load of things trying to debug kind of OAuth problems that I've had connecting back to my server and all this type of stuff with some client-side stuff I was working on. And this has been really cool for kind of managing that. You get to see a list of cookies that were on that request and sent through, so it's a nice way of doing that as well. Again, you can order things, you should be able to order things by size. There we are. So you can order them by the size, and then it gives you another breakdown of the actual, excuse me, gives you another breakdown of the time and information. So you can actually really start to drill down into each of these items. It's pretty cool. Let me just exit out of that. We have a nice little button that collapses it. I just do that sometimes. So let's have a look. Where are the network tool, the configuration there? We have a little button across the bottom. You can't see it very well, but settings. We can do things like disable cache. So that's one of the hard problems that you've got when you're actually developing applications, is that if you've set up a decent application, you normally set cache headers, cache timeouts, all this type of stuff, you can actually disable it. And then we can do nice little things like log XML HTTP requests. So the thing about XML HTTP requests, it's kind of funny. The thing about XML HTTP, it's not actually funny. I don't know why I said it was funny. is that they will, XML HTTP requests will appear in this network timeline. If you make an XML HTTP request at some point in your application, it will appear here the same as every other request. But one of the things that you kind of like to do is actually be able to use the console log, because sometimes you go into like pure console mode, check to see whether the XML HTTP request is fired, and then you'll have a console log to when it changes state to make sure that the data's coming through. You'll basically see the console log. We'll show you in a minute actually, but you'll see it here. So it's kind of cool. Wow, that's weird. Did we refresh the page? Yeah, we must have done. So it's kind of nice, right? Kind of nice stuff. The console API itself is actually really interesting. I kind of like this. And I actually learned a lot. So Paul Irish has got a whole load of videos. I want to do updates.html5rocks.com. Let's have a look. Scroll down. Oh, I can't scroll. Here we are. So he's done a couple of videos on DevTools. We have a whole website about DevTools. I think it's code.google.com/Chrome/DevTools, which is documentation about our DevTools, because our DevTools for Chrome pretty much evolve with every single release of Chrome. It's kind of amazing how this stuff happens. But Paul Irish, that's him there, Handsome Paul we call him, he does some really cool stuff, and I'd encourage you to kind of look out for him at least. So, but the command line API, right, is that we've got this, like we said, we've got this ability to log HTML requests. You can do it in the kind of, either through the network preferences or in the console itself. I actually won't do one now, but we can do that. It's pretty nice, it's pretty cool. I'll tell you what, actually, I think we can do the demo here. No, it didn't do any extra. It did the other day. It didn't now. I don't know why it didn't. Let's move back. I apologize for this. Let's jump through. But we'll go back to the command line at least. So the command line's got a whole load of different commands. We've got a complete API. The one that most people know and use most often is console.log. Like we said before, you do console.log test. Oh, well, tells you when you've got errors in your code. It says test. It's kind of simple. It's not too great. But there's a whole load of things that we can do, right? If you've got, say, let's go to this, right? We want to pick an element. We want to get, so tell you what, let's get this element here, right? That list item. So we've got that list item selected. It's kind of cool. And there's some convenience methods inside the console, inside the console itself. So you probably recognize some of these anyway from other languages like jQuery, other APIs like jQuery. But you can do things like $0, which will actually return you the HTML element. So if we look down here, is that clear? Can people see that? $0 gives you the element that we just selected. So we select a new one. Select a new one there. Go back $0. It's got that other element, which is this element here. And it's kind of cool, right? But actually, that's the HTML representation of the data. Actually, what you want to be able to do is actually understand the properties, right? So you can do console.dir, $0, pull it out, and it actually gives you the HTML JavaScript kind of, like the JavaScript entity for that object. So this is the HTML element. It's got a base URI. Let's have a look. It's got actually 7 embedded child nodes. Inner HTML, that's the inner HTML, the inner text, all that type of stuff. It's pretty cool stuff, right? It's just a convenience method. I believe JavaScript, jQuery's had it for a while anyway. But it's kind of convenient, right? So let's just jump back out. We have inspect. Inspect is, so inspect, right, let's have a look. Let's document.body. Did I spell that right? No. Very odd. There we are, I apologize. So did we see what happened there? Inspect, it did that weird blue selection behind it. It's the inverse of us actually physically selecting an element and kind of showing it that way. So what you can actually do is you can actually try and find different elements inside your page based off things like query selectors. If you have a query selector inside your inspect, you can pull it in that way. And one of the really nice things, I think they call it bling bling because it's $, but you can do a query selector all off this. It's kind of interesting. So if you do $, all we see here is that actually it's returning It's returning a function called document.querySelectorAll. I mean, that's all it does. It's a convenience function more than anything else. But then you could do inspect $, if this works, li. Hopefully this will return everything. Yeah. So didn't work quite as planned. So 1 second, 0. So actually what we've done is then we're inspecting the very first list element that appears in the whole kind of the web document. So you can do a whole load of nice things just with that little API. We've got copy as well. So say we do, actually tell you what we'll do. We'll do a different one, keys and vowels. So we'll get the $0 element, which gets us, oops, sorry. $0 gets us the, I apologize, my thumbs and fingers are going crazy. $0 gets us the very first element. So one of the things that we can do is we should be able to, values, $0 returns a list of kind of all the elements that are attached in just a string, basically. All the elements and attributes that are, all the values for the attributes that appear on a particular object. So if we do things like keys, $0 like that, we get a list of all the objects, say all the attributes that are attached to that DOM element that we had a minute ago. And then values gets a list of all those values. But you want to do some kind of cool stuff with that. You know, it's hard to actually take this and copy it out to something like TextMate. We've got another convenience function just so you can do some kind of basic things with it. But we've got the ability, oh wow, that didn't work, did it? Ah, sorry. So that actually worked perfectly. It copied the HTML value, the HTML data straight through. But if we do values $0, that worked in my demo yesterday. Right, I apologize for this. Values $0. Yeah, that is so weird. You should be able, so what you should be able to do is copy values $0. One more go. No, it didn't work. And then actually paste it in. So that's another one of my famous demos, which completely fails. But let's ignore that one. Yeah, and monitor events. Actually, monitor events is pretty cool. So one of the things that you want to be able to do is, for instance, be able to monitor all the things that happen to a particular element, right? So if we do, let's do body. Let's monitor events, document.body. Right, this is going to fire a whole load of things when we do it. Look, so it's actually, monitor events actually shows you all the events that fire for that element. So I'm actually wheeling down the page. I'm, in theory, clicking up. Well, that was a bad demo. Clicked on the page, so we should have had a click event somewhere up here as well. But we get all the mouse move events. We get a whole load of different events coming through. It's pretty powerful stuff, right? But then we can do, I believe it's, we get a whole load of different events as well. Like we should get scroll events, like wheel events and all that type of stuff. Let's have a look, mouse. Actually, we'll probably get them here as well. But you can filter them out to like mouse, keyboard as well, so that you only get a list of events that happen that you're kind of interested in, not all these kind of weird like mouse wheel events that we're seeing here. So it's kind of powerful, right? The actual console API has got a whole load more stuff than most people normally think, and it's pretty cool, some of the stuff that we can do. Yeah, so script debugging. Script debugging is a big one for me, right? We have this ability to kind of view the page, view the source code, and potentially do things like edit the source code, which we're going to do in a minute at least. But we've got the ability to obviously set basic breakpoints. So let's see if this works right. So document.body.add event listener. Click. This is the worst demo ever, but we'll do it again. Alert. Hello. This could potentially ruin my whole rest of the demo if I have to click on anything else. But here we go. So all we've done is we've basically just added a nice little piece of DOM JavaScript in, and we click on it, we press hello. It's kind of what we expect to happen, and it's been able to do that for quite a while now. But if we go to the scripts, we should actually see. It's not there.
Can we stop observing
yep.
those events?
Sorry?
Can we stop?
We should be able to stop those events. I don't know why I can't at the moment. Let me just close it down, open it back up, and oh, hang on a sec. I know why. I got preserve log. So that's the really cool thing, is you can actually preserve the complete log on on page refresh. So if we go refresh now, we've got the whole logged on.
And now is the script still present when you refresh?
No, the script I've just added isn't. That's just this particular to the DOM itself. It was just the console log. Because quite often you'll do some login and you want to see what happens on load, and then you'll refresh and then try it again. And you'll normally lose your position of exactly what happened. It's just a very basic thing at the moment. So anyway, we can do a whole load of things like, tell you what, we actually will use this page. It's kind of interesting. And I will jump out of full screen because we're going to have a whole load of problems. We can set DOM breakpoints. So you might have some JavaScript which manipulates the DOM. So I'll rephrase it actually. We've always had the ability to be able to set specific breakpoints in code. So when we do things like, if we look at this code where we'll have not prettify but slides, next slide, we move through, we get the basic breakpoint, and we've always been able to have that. And then we can even do nice little cool things like live debugging. So alert, hello, I say hell. Alert, hello. Go back. To save the changes out, it's this little button here. We go back through, hello, because it's actually reloaded that part of the event. It's kind of interesting, right? So we'll go back through, next slide, hello. Let's remove that because it's going to get really annoying soon. Go back through, press play, because it retries the event, press play, it's gone. So that's kind of live JavaScript edit. It's actually really powerful stuff. So we get the ability to do that as well, but then we can also add event listeners which might change the state. So we can set a DOM breakpoint. If this works, this is going to be really cool. What DOM breakpoints are is when a piece of code changes an attribute. Maybe it's like a CSS class or a href on a link or something else. Normally, it's actually kind of hard for you to actually try and work out where that breakpoint happened, especially if you've got multiple places in your code which manipulate multiple attributes. So let's give this a demo, right? We've got the code element. Let's go and get the current page here. And what we want to do is we want to try and set a breakpoint. So you basically right-click on the event. We can break on attribute modification. So there we go. We press that button. And I'm really hoping this demo works perfectly. We press, there we go, cool. So actually what happened, when we pressed left, because the way this presentation is built to build kind of point on point on point, it wasn't changing any attributes at all. Until I moved back where we changed the CSS class here. So element.classlist.remove for the current page. That's the point when it fired. And as you can see here, basically, the fact that we've set that breakpoint, we've manipulated a CSS class here, we get that breakpoint, and that's what happens. And that's the actual attribute breakpoints. It's kind of really powerful stuff. Let's press play. I'm going to remove it so that your DOM breakpoints are also listed here on the right-hand side. We're going to get this all the time, so we'll remove it for now. So that's kind of cool. But not only do you get attributes, you can do things like when a node's deleted. None of the code that I've got today deletes any nodes, but that's another one that's kind of important. Like you want to look for when different parts of the user interface are changed or modified or deleted, and then when that happens, the piece of code and the piece of JavaScript that you've got which does that will actually do it. It's pretty powerful stuff. We saw this in the demo or in the keynote today. So scripts, this is all kind of ugly stuff. You just press this one little button here, the parentheses there, pretty print, and there we go. It's powerful stuff, right? That's pretty cool. And that actually will save you a whole lot of time because when I've been developing the Web Intents framework, all my code on the live production system is minified. And it just basically comes back as one huge line of code. And debugging that, like Ilmari said in the presentation, you normally get error on line 1 because there is only literally one line of code. Now we can set just different breakpoints here. It's just kind of nice. We see the code. It's a lot easier to debug. It might still be obfuscated with kind of C dot, B dot, GA dot, and all that type of stuff. But you can at least set breakpoints, and you can at least do nice things with your JavaScript, even if it's minified code. It's kind of nice stuff. Yeah, the whole idea behind this is that we don't want you to have to refresh. I mean, normally what used to happen in the old days, last year, maybe like a couple of months ago, if you want to edit the JavaScript, you edit on the server or your local file store, and then upload it, and then test it and see if it works. Now you can just test it, save that file out, and then once it's all working, save the file out and actually go into put that into your source control, and then if you want, deploy it. It's pretty cool stuff. Yes?
So when you are debugging JavaScript and you hit the breakpoint, can
Yep.
you just drag the arrow to
No.
another point of execution like
No.
in Visual Studio?
No, that'd be cool. I mean, that would be really cool.
But it's
But
not
you,
cool now.
you can't do it at the moment. It'd be kind of nice. I actually don't know whether it's being worked on at the moment either. It's kind of crazy. The whole DevTools thing it's changing a lot pretty quickly, and there's a whole lot of new things going into it all the time. But like we said, there's the pretty printing, which is kind of pretty cool. Remote debugging. Yes, sorry.
Can you just show the event listener?
Yeah.
Again?
Yeah, sure. Where were we? Window. I closed the developer tools. So you want to know how to enable it? Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're going to find the element. So we're going to click the magnifying glass. It's just the easiest way of doing it. The article. So in this code here, at least, we have a class for the current page, the previous page, and the kind of the future pages. And all we do is, I'll tell you what. I'll zoom in so we can see it. I'll zoom out a little bit because we can't see it. Break on attribute modifications.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do something like echo, like whenever I click on an element, jump to that function that
Oh yeah. Not at the moment, but you can normally find them pretty quickly and then do those breakpoints there inside the code. Actually, no. I'll tell you what. I might tell a lie. Actually, let's go to so we found the element. Let's jump down to the bottom. Event listeners DOM breakpoints, so we can check them. No. Because normally what can happen, at least, if you understand that your element has an event listener attached to it, if you select this element here, you can at least find the event listeners that actually have that element attached to it. So yeah, you can do it kind of roundabout. It should give you the line number as well, and you can click on that and set the breakpoint. Cool. Remote debugging. This is interesting, right? It's especially important for kind of the future of mobile development. The RIM playbook has it. So RIM playbook is based on WebKit, and they've got version 1 of. I think they support version 1 of the API. But the idea is that you can actually connect your window, your current machine, so this instance of Chrome, and connect it directly to. I'll tell you what. Let me just jump back a sec. And connect it directly to that device. It's kind of starting to get it's really powerful stuff, really, because once you do that, you don't actually have to try and fiddle about with kind of console login on your own kind of machine. Sorry, inside like the Android device, and then kind of say Android. Android's my example, right, in the sense that you have WebKit, you do console.log, and the easiest way to get that, you can either go about:debug in the browser, and you can see some of the console log, or you connect your device, to the actual device debugger on, through Eclipse and all that type of stuff, and then start to see all the console log output, and it's not a nice way to develop. And the RIM playbook itself has got this ability to enable you to connect your WebKit instance to that device, and then be able to inspect the DOM and the properties from, say, your Chromebook or your Chrome machine, but have it run on that device. It's pretty cool stuff. And essentially the way it works is that the Chrome browser itself or the WebKit browser in that point of view, is actually running excuse me, it's running basically a mini web server, which then orchestrates everything up itself. Does anyone do any Chrome extension development? A couple of people, right? It's kind of cool. So the interesting thing about Chrome extensions, obviously, is that they have a kind of a wide range of, say, ability to access the Chrome application, the Chrome itself. So you can do things like, do cross-domain requests. You can add context menus and all of the stuff as well. And one of the things that the team are working on is the ability to actually integrate with developer tools. So the idea is that you can build a Chrome extension which might, for instance, add. So this is the code here, but if you created a Chrome extension which was a font analyzer, this is the font picker in this instance, you can basically start adding more elements to this list. So you can build more Chrome extensions which help developers. And that's one of the things that I always found that Firefox had this really cool ability to do, is enable developers to do really cool stuff. And we have this ability to integrate we now have this ability to integrate our Chrome application or our Chrome extensions into the developer tools. It's pretty cool stuff, and we're going to see what happens. The only problem that we've got at the moment is it's under Chrome experimental, which means that you have to launch Chrome in experimental mode for your extensions to load. But we have a whole load of stuff. We have the panels, so you could add like we said, add this new kind of font picker panel here, and also manipulate kind of specific properties and areas inside the DOM tree. Excuse me. But we've also got things like the ability to add audit. So actually, I want to show you audit. It's kind of nice. So the audit API, or the audits, let's run them all. So refresh, press run. The audits is kind of like the old is a page speed optimizer, where it would actually tell you the things that you needed to do. The audit panel here is actually telling you that the following items need to be cacheable and all this type of stuff. It's just a really nice kind of simple tool to enable you to build, enable you to optimize, the requests, the type of styles, whether you should add cache into your elements and all this type of stuff. But in theory, we can also add elements into this, add our own kind of, our own specific checks into this using the Chrome extension API, at least. And then resources. So the resources is being able to get a har file. Har files are essentially a collection of, sorry about this, the network stack and all the trace files. And once you do that, once you got the har file, then you can upload it to some online analysis tools, and then they can do a whole load of other kind of checking as well. But we can actually start to get the data out via Chrome extension of this basically this network panel. It's pretty cool. But it's not quite ready yet. That's why it's behind the experimental side of things. But once it goes live, we're going to start seeing a whole new section, like a whole new kind of range of new tools coming out for developers. Yeah, so when you're developing at least, so we're actually really near the end now. The Chrome dev channel. Like I said, a lot of the, who uses the Chrome dev channel? Actually, this is a good question. Only a couple of people. Who uses just the plain stable version? Most people, right? Yeah, so the Chrome dev channel, I'm kind of encouraging everyone to have Chrome dev channel. The problem with dev channel itself at the moment is that you can't use stable and dev at the moment at the same time because they use the same profile information. So if you want to keep your stable version, use the Canary version of Chrome. It's pretty much an update of Chrome every single day. Pretty much every day we'll do a build of Chrome, which we'll release out, which you can then test. And because there's that much work going into the Chrome DevTools, you'll be able to kind of see the latest things that happen that make your life as a developer easier, basically. Bugs, we're always keen to hear kind of bugs and issues that you've had with the feature track with the Chrome DevTools, new.crbug.com. They normally get triaged pretty quickly, and then hopefully worked on as well. Keyboard shortcuts, let's have a look. That didn't work. Where's that work? There we are. So you press that, and then you get kind of special little keyboard shortcuts about how to kind of manage the debugger, so like step over, step into, and all that type of stuff. So it's pretty cool. It's just a nice little way of kind of learning more about the what was I going to say? It's more about learning how to actually use the debuggers and all that type of stuff. We said Chrome DevTools. Pretty much everything that we talked about today is on code.google.com/Chrome/DevTools with all the latest documentation about how to use the profile panels, CPU profiling. Pretty much every single panel that you saw inside the console tools today, we have the documentation for. And I actually encourage everyone to do that because actually things like the CPU profiling and the heap profiler, they get pretty complex, and we can't do it justice in like a 10-minute part of the talk. But we have all that documentation there. It's pretty good. It's pretty solid. And like I said, Paul Irish does a whole load of videos and tutorials and stuff about how to do that. And it's on updates.html5rocks.com. That's where he puts pretty much all of his stuff. And then we have Boris Smuss, who's another Chrome DevRel engineer like me. He's got this DevRel tool cheat sheet as well, which is kind of pretty nice. That's pretty much it, actually. These slides are available. You won't see my name on them because it'll be Paul Irish who actually did this initial slide set, but they are available. We do as many updates as we possibly can via Chromium Dev Twitter account. And like we said, code.google.com/Chrome/DevTools. That's where all the documentation for everything that we're doing inside what we talked about today, that's where that's maintained. So thank you. I know it's pretty late and everything's kind of finishing now. Does anyone have any other questions? Yes? Aware of user scripts? Well, it depends, right? So the way that user scripts work, the old Firefox user scripts and Chrome extensions work, is that it converts it to a Chrome extension. And if it acts as a content script, if you've got a plugin which injects content scripts, they will be they'll be visible inside this dropdown. So then you can actually start to debug the content scripts or the user scripts and all that type of stuff that are attached to that particular page. So you can see them. Anyone else? Yes?
Is there a way to debug native client?
Debug native client? Not that I know of. So actually, so the question is there a way to debug native client? You tend to debug it, I presume, using the normal GDB kind of debugger tools that you'd have for just doing a normal native app. And then you might have to debug your kind of interaction with that native code from the JavaScript separately inside the browser. But you won't be able to drill into any specific things. But it's a good question, right? I mean, it's something that'd be really nice to have, but I don't think it's there. Anyone else? No, cool.
Are those audits?
Yep. Sorry, what, the audits?
Yeah. What is it for?
Oh, what the audits for? The audits tell you kind of the issues that you might have in your page. So things like, this one here is that you're supposed to get like this test here is like specify image dimensions. To actually help the browser lay out the page properly, it kind of needs image dimensions. Otherwise, it has to wait until everything's loaded and recalculate the page once the image is loaded as well. So this is just a test that tells you, actually, you should probably think about putting, it's an audit across your web app. It tests a whole load of different criteria to see what, how you can improve, pardon me, how you can improve your app. Red one's the most important, so, but we have these, so it's kind of nice. Oh, cool, thank you.